Cool.
Thank you so much for appearing. I will, on notice, ask both AFPA, Vic Forest and any other state forestry agencies to go through the evidence we've just heard now and correct any inaccuracies in the data that's been given in terms of percentages of the industry, etc. Now, Professor Lindenmayer, how has methodology for assessing location of leadbeater possums changed over your long career?
So there are new technologies to detect animals with...
Such as? Just pretend I'm not a scientist that detects animals. So what are they?
So you can use cameras.
Yep.
And you can use heat sensing cameras.
Yep.
So there are two of the ways that you can detect animals, and we have done both.
And can you also do it by walking through an area and how many X animals you see in Y cubic metres or...?
You can do searches that way, but traditional ways such as spotlighting is potentially problematic.
Right.
But there's a very important context for this, Senator, and I'm going to refer to two books on this. And one is, once you start to make measurements of something over time, you need to continue to make similar measures through time. Otherwise, what happens is that you breach the integrity of the long-term data set. Okay, so it's like if you measured smoking in one particular way 50 years ago and measured it in a different way, you would breach the integrity of the data set. So what we do with our data on leadbeater's possum is we still measure animal populations the same way that we started in 1983 to now.
Great.
Okay.
All right. So how much of that research then, using that methodology, is conducted in reserves and national parks compared with coops?
It's 50% in wood production forests and 50% in national parks and closed water catchments. It's an even split between the two, and that was always part of the important contrast between the two kinds of places. And that's how we know the effect of the amount of logging in the landscape, how that affects the presence of animals on sites. And that was published in the paper in 2020.
Yep, thank you. You've tabled all of those. Of the 164 monitoring sites that...
so 183.
183, okay. Are they randomly distributed across mountain ash and alpine ash forests and age classes, or are they primarily situated in easily accessible areas?
They are designed to cover the range of environmental conditions, Senator. So they cover steep slopes, flat areas, areas that have been recently burnt, areas that are long unburnt, areas of old-growth forest, areas of young forest. So they cover the range of conditions.
My question, I guess, given the size of our forest estate, particularly in Victoria, are they mainly near tracks and roads?
They are for public access, except deep within the water catchments.
So how many of the 183 are deep within the water catchments?
Approximately half.
50% are deep inside the water catchment.
Watts Creek catchment.
What are you going to... How do I define
Watts Creek
deep?
catchment, and you would know this from where you grew up. Watts Creek catchment, O'Shanassy catchment, Upper Yarra catchment, Maroondah catchment, Starvation Creek, McMahon's Creek, etc. So this is
my understanding is because of the need to access these sites regularly to get the longitudinal data you need for your career.
It's not for my career. It's to provide evidence to support decision making.
The proposition that you do.
It's not the proposition. It's the evidence.
Have they been randomly located?
No, they have not. They have been set so that we capture the range of conditions in the forest so that we can make broad inference about what is happening in the forest.
So age types and forest structures?
Slope, aspect, age class, burn history, soil type, terrain, topographic wetness. There's a range of variables.
Okay, on notice, if you could just table your selection criteria, that'd be great. And also the map you mentioned earlier. We got quite a detailed map from Vic Forest, and I'd appreciate the map that you refer to being tabled as well.
So which map is that, Senator?
The one of your sites.
Sure.
Thank you. How many of your sites that burnt in 2009 now have leadbeater's possum in them?
I would have to go back and check that.
Okay, thank you. How do you deduce the greater gliders have had an 80% decline when your assessment sites cover the ash forest sites and are not representative of the mixed species forests where the majority of greater gliders live?
We have never claimed to work on greater gliders in mixed species, only in ash. So the decline in the ash covers mountain ash, alpine ash and shining gum.
Okay,
And that's
I will
longitudinal.
find the direct. I'll find where that has been commented on, and you can, on notice, deal with that for me.
So our mixed species forest work on greater gliders includes Buddaree National Park, Parks Australia, and greater gliders have been extinct there since 2007. So they went extinct in a 6,600 hectare area.
Right.
So we have also worked on the greater glider in mixed species forests in the Tumut area as part of our long-term work in plantations and adjacent forests, and the decline of the greater glider has been significant in that area as well. So as a consequence of that, the Victorian Government has asked us to work out how we can solve the issues with the rapid decline in that species.
Professor, and this is for each of the witnesses. I'm sorry, Icon, we couldn't get to you, but do you support a native forest harvesting industry in Australia?
I do not support it in its current form because it's so heavily dominated by wood chipping and pulping, and the vast majority of jobs are now in the plantation sector.
Under what conditions would you support a native forest harvesting industry?
If it could be demonstrated to be truly ecologically sustainable forest management.
According to you?
According to the definitions of ESFM.
Well, there's people that we've had evidence that would already argue the RFAs provide that.
Ask your question, Icon. Do you have an answer to the Senator's questions, please?
Sorry, Icon, do you support a native forest harvest industry?
I support industry innovation to really kind of examine where and how we can have a thriving industry that also is regenerative. And that's, I think, what Australia actually desperately needs. I think there are lots of really interesting examples of private business that are doing exactly that. And I'd actually draw your attention to companies like Wood for Good. They're really about seeking degraded lands, planting biodiverse plantations, having high value timber products coming out of those forests, sequestering carbon and accessing carbon markets through that avenue, really restoring biodiversity and enhancing community resilience. And that's the kind of forest industry that I think our country needs.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I say thank you to both witnesses or groups?